and get started. Our panel that we're going to be having right now is what we've called AI and Professions. And this was intentionally kind of a broad title, but to think about how AI impacts the ability to conduct business, the ability to work, types of work and the ways that we do work in the future. So without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our moderator for this panel, and he can then introduce the panelists. Our moderator for this panel is Ben Bernard. Ben Bernard is the design technologist in the School of Design, Architecture, and Art at North Dakota State University. With 20 years of experience working with design students and faculty, Ben has helped to launch 2 maker spaces while building out digital fabrication and production capability in the downtown NDSU campus, with a special focus on integrating new technologies. Along the way, Ben has slowly been working on a computer science PhD focusing on cybersecurity education, and he assists with the Bison Cyber High School Summer Camp and the new Fargo B-Sides Cybersecurity Conference. Outside of NDSU, Ben serves on the Moorhead High School Career Academy Construction Pathway Advisory Board, the Northern Plains 3D Digital Fabrication Club, and his son's Boy Scout Troop Committee. So without further ado, Ben, please take it away.
Thank you very much. And again, it's my pleasure to help out with this panel, and I'm really excited to learn more about AI and several different professions. So we'll start out with introducing Rob Ash. He's the Director of Business Applications and Sales Origination for Avanade. All right. Where he leads consulting services growth for the Midwest region and advises C-level executives on business trends, technology innovations, and digital transformation initiatives. He has over 20 years of sales experience, including 11 years at Microsoft, where he held numerous enterprise sales and leadership roles. Rob holds a bachelor's in philosophy from Minnesota State University Moorhead, the Credential of Readiness from Harvard Business School Online, and an MBA in management from Boise State University. Then next, if I can get to my right stuff here. I've had the pleasure of working with Ty Pritchard. Sorry, I'm skipping order. I'm a bad person. But Ty graduated from NDSU in 2012 with his master's in architecture, and found a career at JLG Architects, where he's worked closely with new developing technologies as an architect and a project designer. Ty's been a part of many high-profile projects, both regionally and nationally, further leveraging new technologies to advance the profession of architecture and introduce an integrated design approach to the region. On the end is Brett Connect. He holds a master's in computer science focused on cybersecurity and works for Egg World Support Systems as a developer, doing his best to protect the French fries, which again, very important. Egg World Support Systems is a vegetable inspection company and has its largest volume of inspections focused on potatoes. Brett's work includes end-to-end design and development, and his interests in AI and how it can make things easier for him and his organization, and how to protect those within his organization. And of course, there's lots of very interesting cybersecurity aspects to that role. And then last but not least, again, I apologize, we're not sorted in order. Because I'm a bad moderator. Again, so I don't take time. Could I ask you to introduce yourself, and
I'm Professor Dr. Atif Farid Mohammed, with a PhD in cybersecurity from Canada and a PhD in scientific computing from University of North Dakota. I'm the global head of generative AI, R&D, Chief Data Officer, and Chief Information Security Officer for an organization called Global Technology Solutions.
Thank you very much. And so with that being said, I'd like to have, if we could go in order down the row, if we could have each panelist talk about their perspective in AI and their profession, and then we'll open up to questions both in the room and online.
So hi, everyone. I work for a company called Avanade, and Avanade is a joint venture between Accenture and Microsoft. So we are a global systems integrator. Basically, what I do is I help companies do digital transformation efforts with business applications. So when I think about generative AI, it's one from the lens of a salesperson. So how do I use AI to help me in my day-to-day and working with both internal resources and with customers? So an example of how I used AI this morning was helping prepare for a customer presentation. So simply using AI to scroll for news on this particular customer, even private organizations, what's going on in their industry, what's relevant for them, just to make sure that I'm up to date on things. If I don't have 3 hours to invest time in researching a customer beforehand, even 5 to 10 minutes with simple Bing chat enterprise prompt allows me to get just more up to speed than I would if I was to, scroll through a bunch of different blog posts, things like that. And I can also use that for things like meeting follow-ups. We use Teams Enterprise for our organization, and we've got Copilot capabilities that allow us to get meeting recaps and follow-ups. And hey, we didn't talk about this. This was the agenda of the meeting, and we didn't get to this one. Make sure you follow up with that. We've got some of those capabilities already rolled out at our organization. So that's kind of the internal focus, and the external focus is helping my customers envision how they're going to utilize AI in their organizations. Most of what we're known for is a lot of the ERP type of projects, so enterprise resource planning, and a lot of that has to do with supply chain management for large manufacturers or consumer goods organizations. So how are they leveraging their supply chain systems and data to be able to get relevant insights on their supply chains and the health of their supply chains? Most large organizations, I think, are far more reactive than they'd like to be, especially over the last couple of years with the supply chain disruptions. You got to see how many organizations were really reactive to the point where they had failures in their supply chains, and that had tremendous business impacts. I think the potential for AI that allows those organizations to take those data insights and go back on offense. Where can they predict those potential disruptions? How can an organization that might be a regional retailer, how can they have a better, more efficient reverse logistics system so that if there is a product return, that it gets returned to the right store that also has a demand for that product that can then get it back out into the market and turn back into a dollar sign in the accountant's books. Those are the kinds of things that we do on a pretty regular basis. And a lot of what I'm doing is the initial conversations for the business justifications, the current state analysis, and then what does this really mean? What's the cost of inaction for an organization? What's the potential benefit and risk if they start moving in the direction of a digital transformation project and AI?
At Global Technology Solutions, we are taking care of public sector as well as the state universities, where the conversational AI, as one of our previous panel speakers was discussing. We take care of that on everyday basis, making sure that they are secure and they are efficient, and providing the more prosperous way for an organization to work with the generative AI, where a human touch comes in as and when needed. And that's what Global Technology Solutions does. Otherwise, I'm teaching artificial intelligence since 2015 at UNC Charlotte. And that's where I have seen ChatGPT evolving from GPT 0.5 version till today. And I wrote my own 7 LLMs till date. Not depending on any OpenAI or Bard or etc. The Anthropic. So I've been living and been published on this. So what we do and Global Technology Solutions, we go to a prospect and discuss the possibilities or the art of the possible to assist them in terms of generative AI in specific, by making sure it's secure and their data is not lost. That's what we do.
Hi, I'm Ty Pritchard. I work at JLG Architects in town here. So the part that I focus on is more the use of creative design. So I'm going to talk a little bit about products in their use form and being able to get ideas and thoughts as an artist outside of your head in order to share. So that's really my focus and what I want to talk about today, and more of the product and less of the production of the product, and how we communicate with it and how we use that in our practice. And that goes all the way from, construction documents we've been looking into to all the way to image generation and really just being an artist and getting ideas down on paper that you can share with somebody else. Like, this is kind of what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Brett Connect here. Working at Ag World Support Systems. Not sure if it's actually working.
I don't
is it?
know. I don't know if it's working, but
Tried it.
oh, it is. It's just quiet. You want to try this one?
Is that better? There we go. Working at Ag World Support Systems. My name is Brett Connect. New to their venture here, and they are now getting, to the point where they've seen the media about all this AI everywhere for everything. So they're starting to ask questions. How can we employ it? How can we use it to best suit our needs? And that is where we are currently focused on the, beginning aspect of how do we implement it? How do we use it? And that's a challenge in of itself, we've discovered, because there's a lot of people doing some amazing things with it. So in the inspection industry, it's, how can we assist our people on the line to, make a better call on, different types of inspections, is this a case of rot or sun damage, or, using some of that generative AI and assisting them makes the onboarding like a new employee a lot faster. They have something to lean on, as well as learn and hone their own skills as they go.
So with that, again, we have a really amazing panel here. What questions do we have that we can ask them to learn more about how AI is being implemented in the professions?
So we have a question from the online that we can start with. The first question is, what is the difference of this use, I presume referring to AI, of customer data search versus using Google as we know it?
Well, I can take that. So there are three types of data: standard customer data, the data that already exists, and the data that's created, which is synthetic data. So if we are working with the data for an organization and we are going with OpenAI, at this moment, there are no sureties where that data will go in the end as once it is consumed. So that is why the co-pilots, which my friend Rob mentioned here, they are coming up. The Amazon is coming up with that. The Microsofts are coming, and all these organizations. They allow you to cater the large language model utilization within a specific context, so the data does not get lost or used. And that's where, when you do a search and at Google, when you ask for a nearest doctor or clinic, you will get in a radius because Google knows where you are exactly. But if you are having a concentrated data set that has your information, then it'll find you the nearest doctor which matches your needs. That's the difference between the standard data search within a context, and Google goes out of the context also. So that's my take. Rob?
So when I think about like the customer data set, I'll use like an example from one of my customers, and I'll anonymize a couple of things. So organization, big consumer goods organization, household name, their products, you probably use them for your entire life. And the company is looking and saying, we have terabytes of data around the recipes for how to create these specific household products. And this is our data. This is our IP. How do we protect that, leveraging all of this cool technology to be able to create customer-facing assets and allow them to create, new recipes for things, or suggestions for meal planning, for instance. Let's say you're a single mom and you're trying to meal plan out for the week, and one child has peanut allergies and another will only eat apples and will not eat pears. And you want to get some examples of these kinds of recipes. But if you were to just go and put all of that data out, to your point, if you put out all of your IP into a public facing language model, then everybody gets to use it and parse it out and reverse engineer it and do all these other things. But if it's more controlled and isolated, and that's really what more organizations are doing now with more of the enterprise approach, where they're isolating that data, they're putting security and governance around it and giving those constraints. So then whatever they're putting out into the public has those constraints can still be useful and provide value, but it's also being protected so that you can still get the outcome without the same level of risk. But it does take some of that that structure as opposed to just saying, hey, let's just take all these terabytes of data and just throw them into ChatGPT and then hopefully nothing bad happens. So it takes a lot more effort for those organizations to be able to make that valuable.
Other questions?
With respect to security and AI, I think that in the future, there's gonna be a lot of different AIs. Everybody's gonna have a competing AI. Anyone who wants to start one could have one. And so there's gonna be a lot of misinformation out there, disinformation created by AIs, whether it's fake artwork or whatever. There's gonna need to be a way to prove that something that an AI has generated is verifiable or is real. And I think blockchain is the technology that does that. I think you can imprint information immutably on a blockchain and make sure that whatever the AI is putting out, you can prove that it's a legitimate AI, prove that what it put out is legitimate. I'm wondering if any of the security guys have had any experience in that regard. That's my interest in the industry right now. So
I'll take that. My second PhD is blockchain security utilization. And that's technically Hyperledger, as we all know, is the open source initiative other than the Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that jazz. So Hyperledger introduced the chain code, which takes your data and isolates it and transfers the keys that it generates to the next station to be utilized, and the next, and the next, and next, all those nodes. So when I was working in these areas, I created a community ledger which used to encrypt, simultaneously create a new data set for the next node to work with, and the next node to work with. So you can do a lineage check if there is an alteration happened. Standard SHA-256 or standard Bitcoin or Ethereum, you cannot change because there are tons of miners who are mining one token and then they're dumping in the blockchain for the record. Whereas the physical data that we use in our everyday life needs updates, alterations, deletions. Someone passes away, the data goes into R&D more likely. You can't use that for any marketing needs, no disrespect. So the idea of blockchain implementation in the cybersecurity is an absolute truth and has pretty nice, control for the organizations to work with. However, the industry is not ready at this moment, still today, to accept that. This is my take. My co-panelists can differ.
from a scaling perspective, just
The technical perspective, scaling, it's dirt cheap. Storage is pretty much free.
I'm a cybersecurity guy.
I make buildings.
Or maybe if we want to broaden that a little bit to just the topic of AI and security in general, without the blockchain aspect. Does anyone have anything to say on some of the challenges either the new AI technologies bring to cybersecurity or some of the benefits the new AI technologies bring to cybersecurity?
You like that?
Sure.
Is this the one that works? There we go. Okay. Yeah, there's certainly some interesting security challenges. Actually, just recently I was at a conference and watched a professional do a demo, essentially using AI to, with a 1 second delay, do a impersonation of anybody speaking any language. That's gonna have some serious ramifications we have to figure out how to combat in the future. I mean, you can impersonate any CEO you want. I don't have the solution to that.
That's where the blockchain will kick in pretty easily to isolate that instance, so we can actually go back and re-engineer who was on the back.
Yep.
Good question.
Please tell me your name again.
Atif,
Atif?
yes.
So one thing that I'm hopeful of is that when blockchain is introduced to the AI and the two combine, that the whole universe of discovery and knowledge will move to the blockchain as a proof. And so we can leapfrog without discussing misinformation, disinformation, because there's the truth established on the blockchain. Do you see that happening, that the gravitation is toward the blockchain and that is the truth solution?
When I was working on my dissertation, the idea that I established after looking at all the proof of work and proof of authority and all that, so I created a proof of permission. And that's where our friend Steve was asking questions. The attitude that is, as an individual, I have, Rob has, Ty has, we have our own attitudes, and these attitudes are the personal traits. The generative AI is coming in with the understanding of what my friend said about the cybersecurity, the impersonation. Those are also truths, but those are truths in a different context. So what you just said, yes, we will have ample data available in blockchain secured, where we can conduct research, and generative AI eventually will incorporate that to make sure that this is the source of truth that we are working with. This is not the fake, this is not synthetic, this is not something which has been between two AIs, Google and Microsoft speaking with each other. So that's reality. Yes, you're right. We do have hope. Yes.
Now, each of you are in different professions and different stages in those professions. You have a new employee. What do you do to bring them into AI tools if they haven't had any exposure before? And how do you get them proficient quickly?
I think for me, so this is one of the exercises that I do with customers when they don't understand how to even utilize it. And I did this actually with a CFO. We were having a conversation and just trying to, it's a thought exercise. Say, okay, imagine that you're staying late at the office. You run out of printer paper. You have to go to the supply room and get some more printer paper. So you go into the supply room, you're rooting around, you knock over a box, and all of a sudden you find a magic lamp. Okay. You find this magic lamp, you rub the lamp, all of a sudden you free the genie, but it's a very specific genie. It is a business genie. And the business genie is so excited that you have freed them from the lamp that they are going to take over all of the menial tasks for your job that you do every day. You can't do other things. You can't wish for more wishes. Everybody knows that about genies, but it's going to take over all of the things, the administrative tasks that you do every day. So you think, okay, how would you tell the genie that doesn't know your job what you want it to do? And that's when you start getting into prompt engineering. When you say, okay, you are my personal assistant. I have to get a report ready for my boss where I talk about these 3 KPIs. Here's where all the data is, where I store all of this information. I'm giving you this information. Give me a list of what is the most important, what are the data anomalies, what are all the things that I'm probably going to get asked when I'm on the hot seat for my business review. Give me all of that information. And you start that as your first prompt. And so it becomes this, for me, it's less of a technical exercise and it's more of a human communication where you're starting to treat the AI like a personal assistant or a genie that has infinite patience, but you have to be extremely explicit with what you're wanting.
I know when we're working with interns or new hires, just having them being able to communicate with the AI, like teaching how you say certain things for what you're looking for. That's the biggest thing for us. Like it's trying to balance, trying to figure out the language, because it is a different language. It's not how I would speak to a normal person. Like you're saying, infinite patience. Like I wouldn't tell a normal person these like very specific things to like move forward. So having a younger staff being able to communicate with it, and then having something that gets produced out of that, and you're able to look at it, and then you're able to assess like, well, was this what I wanted, or does it have aspects of what I wanted, and what sticks? And so like it's reinforcing like, okay, this what I said here worked, what I said here did not. So then you're able to kind of figure out like, this is how you talk to it. So it's just like constantly trying to figure out the best solution or the best language to say the things that you want. on our end.
So what I just go with one sentence.
Mhm.
2023 years ago, a wise man said, ask and you shall receive. We had Google for that, but Google used to bring everything. So try to be, if you're new, if you're coming into the environment, try to be concentrated on the surroundings that you are, the customers, the solutions, and be specific. Do not diverge. Don't go on some hunt which does not exist in this reality that we all live in at Global Technology Solutions. We do have a thing called Document AI, and that's where we actually guide them to ask questions as many as Rob mentioned, prompt engineering, and get them self-aware how to maneuver, how to, walk around in the maze of the technology that we serve in public sector and in the government or in the state departments or state universities. So that's what we do. Thank you.
And we have another question.
Actually, let's go to one from online. First, we actually have about 5 queued online, and I'm going to bring 3 of them together here, so you get a complex question. So one person asks that there have been a number of things mentioned in previous presentations about benefits, doing things faster, saving times and employee cost, creating financial savings, increasing accuracy, response consistency, et cetera. And so this individual goes on to ask, in your work, what have been the most common or important benefits that you're seeing, or are the companies, or how and are the companies you work with discussing how to address the need for human interaction? So that's kind of part one. Another person asks a very related question in 2 parts, which are what are the top 3 upsides and downsides in AI and for AI in personal and professional life. So again, kind of tying into there of how are people using this and what are you seeing as the big benefits and the big drawbacks?
The big benefit for us is time, and also it's showing you something that you didn't know. Like for me personally, I was working on a project and I think I ended up doing over like 2,000 images generated with, I think I was using Midjourney or DALL-E, I can't remember. And the results that I ended up with were something that I wouldn't probably have come up with on my own. So it felt like I had an entire panel of people being able to tell me like, I'm looking at this, I like this, I don't like this. And I was able to parse out the things that worked and didn't work, kind of similar to I was talking about earlier with our interns and younger staff. So to me, it being able to show me something surprising, I love. And then time, I mean, it saves a ridiculous amount of time, just in how I would produce and how I traditionally would have produced an image to show somebody what's in my brain. Takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. If I can have somebody help me with that process and it being 5 seconds, that just saved me a day essentially. So to me, that's the use as it relates to my job.
And in our case, with the state university, we had a system started which was using the generative AI and is now going to the next level where we have introduced the large language model, which we have done internally at Global Technology Solutions, that deals with the conversational piece of artificial intelligence, which were discussed by previous panelists here. The idea of saving time is number 1. The number 2, the best benefit is the accuracy, near 92, 93%. And the third one is making those links available while a person is speaking with a agent on a computer or on a cell phone. That's the person might be on the move, might be on the bus, might be in the train station or the airport, and is getting the to the point information as per the health aspect, because that's the health system that we are working for the patients, for the clinicians, for the administration. So it's a concentrated effort for an individual context that Global Technology Solutions provide using generative AI. Human touch, we make sure that if it's a complex question that had been posed by either or three parties I just mentioned, a human is involved to make sure that this is not monotonous thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the important. Thank you. I hope that answered.
Yeah, I agree. I think curation is really important because it can show you infinite things, and you need to be the person that's making the judgment calls. That's where the professionalism comes in.
Completely agreed. Next question.
So with respect to that, it seems like at this point with the large language models, I find them really unimpressive. I don't think that they've actually stolen anybody's job yet, and they can make everybody's job way more efficient. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have a human graphic designer still for something really polished that I want to put out. So the large language models have been given all of human data throughout all of human history, and it still hasn't derived a single conclusion. It seems like just a parlor trick of algebra. There's a recursive conclusion drawing, and it doesn't even do math. You can't ask it a math question. It queries the database and comes back with everyone else's answers, basically. So as large language models reach the end of their advancement, will they ever become something that can take a job? Or is there a whole new way of thinking about generating AI that will start taking jobs that we need first?
As a professor, I'm conducting that research since 2017, 2018, when the GPT 0.5 came out. And there's a topic that we teach in natural language processing called topic modeling. Technically, GPT is the next level of topic modeling. A topic within a music industry has absolutely nothing to do with supply chain. A supply chain can be in the music industry. Music industry can be in the supply chain. As a human, we understand that. But from the earlier BERT, B-E-R-T, which is a model of natural language processing, up to the BARD or the Anthropic Claude or the standard Chat GPT, which everybody is speaking about. The idea of evolution is actually on the go. It's a non-stop evolution. When someone started the experiment of Google speaking with Alexa, there was a language that started being innovated by those two agents, which humans could not understand. We still have that switch, which we can turn off. The day that switch goes out of our hands, yes, then I'll be worried. Not at this moment. So yeah, the evolution is nonstop. Eventually, the personal assistant that we understand in our everyday life on the phone, my son or daughter never speak with a human. They speak with an actual agent, intelligent agent. That's what we are trying in our capacity in our Department of Economy. I'm not going to name the state. We are providing that for an individual to speak with the device and get reimbursement information for the payments, to address the password change by having not a human on the other side. 11 Labs is an organization that's produced pretty much the same voice as I'm speaking. I can even train my own voice in that. Synthesia is another one which takes your actual picture and converts those voice with your lips moving. And so these are all which are coming in. So the progress is slow at that aspect. However, progress is there, and eventually we'll see. If you have seen the latest Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford is quite old. Yeah, and that thing has created him. So we are actually at the verge of creating Hollywood movies by ourselves for our own liking. I'm done with Jack Reacher. So I asked a couple of these Anthropic and the Bard and ChatGPT, write me a Jack Reacher novel with these things. And then I started reading that because I'm done with all. I have read everything that Lee Child and Andrew Child wrote. Thank you.
I think when you look at like the job market, there's a lot of it that I think that especially knowledge work, is going to be heavily augmented by AI rather than replaced. I think there's some heavily administrative roles that I think are going to change fundamentally. If you look at like a paralegal, where most of their role is a lot of the research and things like that, you maybe instead of having 5 paralegals supporting an attorney, maybe it's a single that has that's also rationalizing against all of the research that they're doing with the support of an AI system. If you look at other types of manufacturing, factory work, a lot of that's going to get automated. But I think the pace of change there is much slower than what the headlines would state, because these are large, complex organizations that also have extreme margin pressures. And it makes it very difficult for them to make that kind of transformation as quickly as you can rationalize it to say, well, AI is so fast and it'll just replace it right away. I was like, yeah, but you know what doesn't change very quickly? People. And especially people who lead large organizations. They don't move nearly as fast as the technology around them does. And I give you several examples of that. Many organizations, when COVID hit, they turned to remote work in a very short period of time. And Microsoft was at the center of that. I was working and leading a team that was helping customers get the commercial mechanisms to go to Teams immediately. And that happened really quickly. But there's still organizations that are struggling with the concept of remote work 3 years later. 3 years is a long time when all that transformation happened in 2 months, and all of a sudden, okay, but there's 200 million, subscribers of Teams that are doing remote work. That doesn't necessarily mean there's that much of a culture shift that's also happening. Some of the processes did, but I think some of that is knowledge work. Yes, there's going to be a significant amount of augmentation that happens, but I think in other areas of society, the trades, other types of manual labor, I think those things, they will get changed eventually, but I think it's going to be slower than people expect.
I would suggest you to look at Global Technology Solutions website. There is a thing called OmniDARS. We have created for a state attorney's office, and that actually looks at all paralegals work without involving a human. So you can look at that. We are slowly innovating that and bringing the generative AI in that. However, we have to be very cautious because legal system has still embedded and engraved things which are enormous. So do look at that when you get a chance.
So related to that question, of course, we've seen some really rapid development in these technologies over the last year. And again, it's impacted different professions in different ways. Where do you see, without revealing anything too proprietary about your organization, where do you see these tools being adopted in your profession in the next 6 to 12 months?
With my organization, we're in a unique position because we're client zero for Microsoft. Because we're partially owned by them, we work very closely with their product groups and things like Teams and the modern work environment and the business applications. That's where I focus on the business application side. So we're getting a lot of these tools rolled out to our organization very quickly. So I think it's going to become more normal to interface with AI co-pilots in the context of work, where it's going to become more seamless for knowledge workers very quickly. When you think about, there's a meme that shows Atlas holding the world up, and in place of Atlas, it just says Excel, and then the world is the economy, right? And so you think about things like Excel, being able to use natural language query to get more quickly reports, information, rationalization. That's going to happen with just a lot of knowledge work in general, particularly what I do. I'm in tech and knowledge work and sales. So we're constantly trying to maybe push the envelope with our customers and try to show them some of those capabilities. I think there's also going to be a reflexive reaction from a lot of people that it's going to, particularly when you think about content creation, there is so much content being created and not all of it's very good or interesting. If you look at a place like LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a very strange social network if you spend much amount of time on there, because a lot of it is very professionally performative, right? And it's actually refreshing when you can tell someone put the thought in to express themselves in a unique way, as opposed to a simple chat generative thing that they just took 30 seconds on. And I think there's actually going to be a bit of a pendulum swing where more creative endeavors are going to stick out because there's going to be so much generative content that you'll be able to tell right away that you're like, that's not really, you didn't really think about that.
So in my organization, we have started working on an endeavor a few months back, differential governance, using blockchain on the back as the proof of permission that who is who, to make sure that lineage is maintained. Also, the incorporation of generative AI at a level where it does not intervene and creates fake thing, because we are dealing with the public sector and the governments. And I just mentioned the attorney's office. So we have to be mindful. So a human definitely looks at the content that's been generated. And that's what we are promoting in all of our landscape that where we work at. In my personal professional teaching aspect as the AI professor, I always suggest my students ask, and ask as long as you're about to die. And concentrate on the answer where you can actually put your stamp on it by incorporating your own thoughts. Otherwise, it'll be, it'll be sort of something which is out of this world, and you have never even thought of it. So LinkedIn, as you mentioned, I can literally read and tell that it has been generated by some Bard or Anthropic, Claude, or ChatGPT, because I'm teaching NLP since 2015. So I have an edge to understand, but I'm a human. The people who are coming in, most of them are consumers. Trust me. It's okay to be a consumer, but if you are an enlightened consumer, and you know what are you doing, then you will actually head somewhere. And just to add one more thing before I hand it over, Edmund Husserl was a scientist, a mathematician who worked on natural attitudes, and his followers, Martin Heidegger, and further, they went into phenomenology, and that's D+1. Whatever happened, what's the next? That's where we should look into these things. That's how. Over to you.
I love the comment on LinkedIn because yeah, I don't know. I just feel like every time I look at it, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't know. But every once in a while, there's something good on there. For us, one of the things that I think is really empowering is just freeing up some of the time to have creative thinking on your own without getting bogged down with like codes, right? So like the IBC is a code book this big that every building has, every exit, every sign, all the things that you need to know. Part of that is interpretation, but for the most part, there's rules that need to be followed. If AI knows all those rules and you're working with putting a wall in a certain place and the door is too close, it'll tell you, or it won't let you do it because the code won't allow it. That is one of the most freeing things, I think, from doing building layouts, because the code book is something that as a professional, you have to understand everything in it, and you take exams and you get licensed and you're saying, yes, I will uphold what is in this book. And having somebody have your back is great. So.
Yeah, I think along the similar vein. So like from the development perspective, there's a lot of technology out there. You can't know it all. It's like Microsoft and GitHub have some pretty cool, Copilot items now they've recently integrated to Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code that maybe you're not familiar with, like SQL queries. So using these tools, they'll help you generate that, and you get a couple shots at it, manipulate it if it doesn't come back quite right. But for a developer, it helps you learn new languages or new technologies substantially faster. It's a lot easier than looking on Stack Overflow, where you might not even get a very good answer that gets you the solution you want anyway. So that interactive aspect is an amazing learning tool.
Absolutely true.
So I think with that, we've got time for maybe one more question from the audience.
We actually have a few online, so I think we
Alright.
did an audience one last. So we have a question online, which is basically in a world where there are a lot of people with low aptitude in communication. The person asking the question asks the panel to help them understand the reality of using AI with the current resources available in the workforce and how you would kind of approach that challenge.
I'll take a stab at that. The communication is something that is significant in both professional and personal life. And all these Anthropic, OpenAI, or Google, or NVIDIA, they do have these pre-trained generators. That GPT is technically a pre-trained generator of the next possible word in a sentence. I eat what? That's exactly the way communication happens. I have been there. Where? That's where is a question that I as a human will ask. So the idea of incorporating these things for communication is significantly important because it allows you with the matter that you can incorporate in your discussions. However, it still is not able to teach you how to say it. That's where you need a human to come and tell you, be respectful, be straightforward, don't be blunt. So that these are the things that comes with the human understanding of the culture. Culture is still the third dimension, which generative pre-trained transformers are not aware. So be among the people who can teach you things. Back to you, Jeremy.
All right, and then our audience question.
If I have an engineering problem and the Chinese engineers have solved it, does the AI search the Chinese language, or do I have to say, please search the Chinese language, or how does that work?
If you have a prompt, search in Chinese, they will go and do that. However, if it is the NVIDIA's Megatron, the biggest in billions of parameters, they will not need you to tell. They will search it. Megatron LLM is so far, as per my understanding, is the best. Anthropic comes second. GPT is now at, even though it's 4.0, in my opinion, that's in the third place. So NVIDIA has the labs, they have the compute, they have all those Megatrons started from a few million, and they crossed the 10 billion mark in terms of the feature extrapolation that they do on behalf of the requests that comes in, generated by pre-trained transformers. So yeah, that's the language is no longer a barrier. What my friend said about the development, 5 to 10 years time frame, there will be very less software engineers, and I mean it. Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to thank our panel, and please join me in thanking the panel for taking time to join us and share these really unique perspectives and answer some really challenging questions. With that, we have a short break, and then we will reconvene at 2 and take our last panel of the day, which is AI and human flourishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.